Good evening, everyone. Grown Black folks talk. I finally got my night lighting together. It took a little bit longer. I'm not really someone who enjoys being on video that much. So I really have had to learn as I go, and I thank you for my patience as I learn this as I go. Finally got my night lighting together. So you can actually, we're not doing something spooky, although today's topic is a little spooky. It's just a thought I had as I was traveling through the city today. How people get stuck and how to get unstuck. There's one key. Uh, this was difficult. I used the example that came to hand, but there are others I could use. I was on public transportation going to a meeting. It's a very good meeting. I've got to order some books and I have an opportunity to take up. And in my other life, I write about the music industry. Actually wrote about that 10 or 12 years ago now. 2000, actually almost 14 years ago now. I've been an author that long, and I talked to someone who was working with younger people in the industry that I'm interested in meeting. So it was a very productive meeting. But as I was on my way to the meeting, I saw something roll out, and it was like watching a train wreck. It's like watching a train wreck. But as an adult with other adults, people are grown. So you can't go correct their behavior like you would if they were children. You kind of watch things happen. And right now in the Black community, because Black women are being killed at the rate of 4 Black women per day, you have to kind of think of your personal situation. There was a gentleman, a Black man, about I'd say between my age or within 5 to 10 years, who came on the bus. He came on the back of the bus. He didn't click his clipper card. Okay, so already, I'll tell you just the steps. Okay, so he may not have had the money. We understand that. Sometimes you don't have money and you're already a Black man. But then this is kind of within the limits of understanding. No mask. So you kind of hit the trifecta. How long have we been doing COVID-19? 20 months. How long has San Francisco had the firmest stance in the nation about COVID-19 precautions? 20 months. So we can understand people not having money. We can understand you can't, if you're Black, you're born Black. That's just who you are. But it was that third piece that made him an instant pariah. The rejection, you could just feel the energy from everybody around him on the bus was instant. Instant. Now, nobody bothered to turn him in. It wasn't that instant, but it just, you could feel that. And I would have looked at him to encourage him as a fellow Black person, because I know that could be, if you don't have money and you're a Black man, that could be a tough situation. You could see that he was poor. But that mask piece, he couldn't see me smiling either way because I had mine on. But that lack of a mask piece, that willful rebellion, I couldn't do anything without the sense of rejection that he felt. Everybody turned their head away. And some people, I was gentle about it, but I just focused on the next place I had to go, because it's not a fight I'm willing to fight as a woman. The bus driver turns on the message. Wearing a mask is a federal requirement. So if somehow you missed the bulletin for the last 20 months, you got the message delivered. He actually did have the mask on. He decided not to pull it up. His response to feeling all that rejection was to turn on his favorite music and to turn it up loud so that everybody could hear that he enjoys music that refers to Black people as N's, B's, and H's. The sense of rejection increased at that point because it had been a peaceful bus ride. It's a beautiful post-rainy day in San Francisco if you like gray, silvery skies and gray streets after a good rain with autumn leaves. He completely disrupted that atmosphere with that music. And then as the rejection increased and the energy, started rapping aloud. So we've now gone down 5 steps. As he was getting off the bus, he stood at the door and would not get off. And as the driver tried to close the door, because he just stood there, and the driver was like, maybe it wasn't the right stop, and closed the door. Then he pushed the door open, and then he got off the bus, and the driver tried to close the door again, and he held the door to keep it from closing, and then finally walked off. A final act of rage at all the rejection he had received. From beginning to end, it took about 10 minutes. And I thought to myself, that man has stamped his ticket to the permanent underclass. Because if you live in a society that already sees you as a Black man, and then is going to look down on you because you're poor, that's bad. Any human being might feel provoked by that. That's understood. But then if you choose to express your humanity and your individuality by showing that you will not respect the rules in society that are for the protection of other people's life, death, and ability to have their liberty, you're going to be stuck in a permanent underclass. I'm not saying that the society we live in is always right. And we do have to find places to make our stands. But the thing is, there's some places you can make a stand that are quicksand for you. If there had been any police officers on that bus, this young man would have made himself available for police activity he didn't need to be part of. Again, he didn't pay his fare. We can understand sometimes people just have situations. He may have even had a medical condition about his mask. Possible. But that music, that fourth step down, and then rapping along with it, that fifth step down, that goes beyond the pale. He survived today. I see younger people doing this, and then I see people my age, and presently I'm sitting here, I've just gotten a phone call. Older Black people are doing this too. They're taking stands against society, they're taking stands against other family members, and they're in quicksand. And this is one of the ways you really can get stuck. And if you continue to do this long enough, eventually the payment for it comes due. It's not pretty. You can't stand in quicksand for long. I'm making this video, and it isn't specific to Black men. I see that often, but I see Black women doing different variations of the same thing. You know, you keep making the same bad decisions over and over again. It doesn't matter who you are. You can't help waking up in the morning and being Black in America. And if you're a Black person, the pressure of trying to appease society is very great. You know, people will blame you for not dressing a certain way and responding a certain way in a situation that is basically unjust. So at a certain point, people despair and give up. But if you give up, okay, you have truly given up. I'm going to say something here that is not going to be pleasant, but it has to do with what I have been saying about you do have life and you have a certain measure of liberty. You get to decide how you're going to use it. This gentleman survived today, about which I'm very glad. I was very glad that there were no Muni police anywhere around. In San Francisco, Muni police will kill you for not having your fare. It's happened a couple times, and those police officers were removed, but it's not as uncommon. That by itself would have been enough to start a situation. Here's the only thing he could have done. In the end of the day, said confrontation wouldn't have needed to happen. You can't help being Black. You can't always help having money. But people can understand that. It's like the Bible says, if a man steals because he's hungry, people will generally understand that. So if you really have somewhere you need to be and you don't have money, we can understand that. But the only thing that he could do to unstick himself from that situation was to take personal responsibility for being the most pleasant passenger he could have been. If you're going to come on and you're not going to pay, okay, we understand that. The minute you choose not to wear your mask and thereby give people around you the feeling that you're willing to endanger their life, and then turn on that music that degrades your own people. But what tends to happen in the Black community is we get very focused on why we feel the need. We have to insert our humanity as best we can. We have to assert ourselves in a society that does not want us to join it. The problem is we don't have the collective power for that to be a winning strategy. That strategy dooms us to just get by. Today, that gentleman survived. He continues that patterning of behavior. He may live a long time because, immunity is not running the usual complement, but he may not. He cannot help being targeted because he is a Black man. And he can't help being targeted because he's poor. But we have to stop here and stop making that the justification for everything that happens next when there are clear behaviors. What people tend to do, men in particular, is if they don't feel they can run the system, they will assert their dominance by making it hard for other people to run it. Like when he went to the door and paused there and held everybody up and tried to assert his dominance over the man who was driving it and held everyone up for that 1 minute. That is what tends to happen when men in a system don't feel they can run it. Another example of this is January 6, 2021. Since a certain number of white men in the country felt like they could not bend the country's political process to their will, they decided they would trash the Capitol, and they bought a gallows and a guillotine. So they decided that the system they could not get to work, that couldn't get to work for them, they were going to destroy it, or at least vandalize it really well. But they had a gallows and a guillotine. So if they caught Nancy Pelosi or Mike Pence, we don't know what they would have done. We know how they hurt several Capitol police officers, and some were killed, apparently. So there are at least 5 to 7 people that died there because of that. So this is a general tendency. The way that you get unstuck, you will be stuck if your human individuality has to be a form of rebellion that holds up other people. You're going to be stuck. You're going to be able to get by at best. You'll never get ahead. The only thing that you have to focus on changing the things that you can change, which is taking responsibility to be the best person you could be in the situation. This is not easy to do because, again, we are living in a society that to a point doesn't want us to be our best selves. If this gentleman had come on the bus and paid his fare and had been dressed in a beautiful suit and a mask to match, there are going to be situations where there would have been police officers potentially who would have harassed him for sheer jealousy. There would have been racists on the bus that may have created a situation for him for sheer jealousy. That does sometimes happen. But at the same time, it lessens the opportunity. Why? Because here's what happened. You pay the required fare, you obey the required mandates, and you did not have music on. You had headphones for your earphones. You want to listen to B's and H's and N's privately, no one's going to be bothered about that because what you have in your earphones is your earphones. You respected the space of the people around you. But people, the only way you can successfully answer disrespect with disrespect is if you have sufficient power to be able to get away with that. This is grown Black folk talk, right? We don't have it like that in the United States of America. And even if we did, that would make us just as disrespectful and disregarding of the rights and the privileges of others as the people we complain about. Now, wouldn't it? Video is not paused. I just wanted you to think about that. Because the goal of freedom is not try to become men and women who can be disrespectful and is disregarding of the rights of others, of their life and their liberty and their right to a peaceful environment as the people we say we're fighting against for greater life and liberty. Tell you something, you play a rough game and you're not big enough or strong enough to play that game, you're going to lose it. So the way that you get yourself out of being stuck is by taking responsibility to not play the games that you can't win. I'm not going to say that Black people should concern themselves with meeting the patriot's idea of a model citizen who does not take stands on important issues. I'm not talking about that. Standing up for your civil rights is absolutely necessary. And I'm not here to describe how people may choose to do that. I may comment from time to time about what has been effective and what has not. But there are times that you have to look at the evil in your society and take a stand. Definitely, that's necessary. But provoking unnecessary conflict, living up to stereotypes about how you don't even try to fit in with American society, that is not helpful to you or to our people in general, because all of us are going to have to work to stay out of the permanent underclass together. How to stay stuck? Make problems for other people for no reason. You can be Black and succeed. You can be poor and work your way out of being poor. You make unnecessary problems for other people, the combination is not survivable. It's not. Don't make unnecessary trouble for other people and take responsibility for what you can make better. That's how you get unstuck. Now, I'm going to have this conversation again tomorrow in real time with someone who is making similar mistakes. And I'm going to have this conversation again, but I thought it would be of value to everyone watching. Because again, in a society that is already looking at us cross-eyed because we're Black and oftentimes are poorer than others, this is very difficult to do. The most natural human thing to do, and this is why I felt so sorry for this man, is to do exactly what he did. I understand human nature and I understand the nature of men and their need for respect, such that his behavior was understandable and potentially deadly to him long term. And if it had gone that way, there would be nothing that I could do. I would have videoed it. I would have spoken out to the police if they had gone to a level of Derek Chauvin. But other than him getting thrown off the bus and slammed up against the wall because he didn't pay the fare and he's not wearing his mask, I'm going to continue my ride. Because that was not a situation he needed to trick. Well, you know what? I probably would have to get off and still video it to make sure he made it out alive. But see, that is where I had to think about that, because that's not a situation that needed to be created. And that's a conversation people have with themselves of, if you create the situation, what happens next is your consequences. But given that Black men are being killed by police officers, now in order for him to have a chance to survive, I as a Black woman have to risk my life. But I probably could not see this man get beat up, literally thrown off, because I know what happens next, unless someone is there, and sometimes even if someone is. So, but even I would have to think about it. You saw me have to go through this live. Even I have to think about it, because to be asked to risk your own life for people who create their own situations is a burden that not everybody will be willing to carry. The Bible says the Spirit of God constrains us. My natural human inclination would be to leave that alone, but it might cost a man's life. But you see there from there how that behavior not only puts that man in a situation, but if there had been police action, now someone else would then have to contemplate risking their life to help this other person who didn't need to be in that situation. Most people are not going to do that for you. They will let you die. Most people are not going to do it for you. And me in the situation, I'm still a human being. I don't know if I would have, because my natural human inclination is exactly what you saw. I'm not going to edit this video. I'm showing you in real time when human beings have to work their way through these issues. When you create a problem for other people, but you may need them to save you, you are creating a situation that you may not survive, because most people are not going to go out of their way if you annoy them. It takes a Christian's Christian in terms of the Spirit of God really working on someone for people to even consider doing that for you. it's a tough issue. That's why I'm doing this video. I wasn't intending to talk today about this. I had something else in mind, but we'll get to that. It's evergreen. Y'all have a good night. I might record that later on for Wednesday. Tomorrow's gonna be rough. I may go ahead and record that next, and I may not. But y'all have a good night. Or actually, you're gonna see this in the morning. So y'all have a good morning in the real daylight. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Gotta figure out where the stop button is on this thing. Hold on.